First of all, let me celebrate hitting 10 subscribers on my channel. And I suddenly realized, after making all these videos, I've never properly introduced myself. So today, I want to talk about who I am and how I went from a patriotic, pro-government little pink to what people in China call an awakened youth. Now, awakened youth in China is actually a sarcastic, even insulting term. It's used by nationalists to mock people like us, those who believe in freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. In their eyes, the moment you say anything positive about the West, you've already betrayed your country. But ironically, what they hate is exactly what I like. Let me start with my first experience bypassing internet censorship. I first jumped the firewall in high school, but I remember clearly back when I was in elementary and middle school, there were actually a few years when YouTube was accessible in China. This was sometime in the early 2000s, during the era of Hu Jintao and Wen Jiabao. Looking back now, China during the Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao years was relatively more open. Of course, things like the Falun Gong crackdown still happened, but overall, society felt less tense, less like the ideological atmosphere we see today. Even though YouTube was accessible back then, I wasn't interested in politics or history. I didn't think of using it to understand the outside world. I just watched basketball, NBA highlights and stuff like that. Then I stopped using it for a long time. To me, YouTube was just some random, unimportant website. I didn't even notice when it got blocked. My real exposure to the outside internet happened in high school. I wasn't exactly a model student. I was the kind of kid my parents complained about, never focused on textbooks, always reading random stuff outside the curriculum. I was curious about everything. I used to go to internet cafes a lot, but unlike most people, I didn't play games. I just browsed everything I could find. One day, by pure chance, I discovered a piece of software called FreeGate. I think a lot of people in mainland China from that generation used it for their first time bypassing censorship. Later, I learned it was developed by a Falun Gong affiliated group. That's when my journey beyond the firewall really began. The software linked directly to the Epoch Times, and through it I saw a lot of things that were completely invisible inside China. I still remember how I felt. Fear and curiosity at the same time. I knew very well that these were things the government had banned. But I couldn't stop myself. I was scared, but I kept reading anyway. To be honest, even inside China, you sometimes hear fragments of forbidden topics in casual conversations. For example, when I was in high school, someone in my dorm once brought up June 4th. The guy who mentioned it even sounded a bit proud, like he had access to some advanced knowledge. That was when I realized these things are real. They're just deliberately hidden. So when I later saw related information outside the firewall, I didn't immediately think it was fake. Instead, I followed a simple line of reasoning. If it's all fake, why censor it? That question alone made me start trusting outside sources more. Before all this, I was actually a typical little pink. When I was younger, I hated Japan. I had a cousin who did very well in school and came from a relatively well-off family, so I admired her a bit growing up. One day I asked her which country she liked the most. She said, Japan. I couldn't understand it at all. I thought, how could you like Japan? Don't you love your country? Looking back now, it's honestly kind of ridiculous. That was textbook indoctrination, pure, unfiltered nationalist thinking. There's a saying online, if you're patriotic before 20, you have a heart. If you're still patriotic after 20, you don't have a brain. It's not a perfect statement, but there's some truth to it. Let me tell you about a classmate from middle school. He came from a wealthy family and didn't care about school. He didn't cause trouble, he just didn't study and slept through class. One time in history class, we were learning about the Nanjing Massacre and Unit 731. The whole class was listening seriously, and I remember feeling disturbed, thinking how cruel the Japanese soldiers were. But this guy, when he saw a picture of a so-called 100-man killing contest officer, said, "That's so cool. So handsome." That moment stuck with me. Years later, we both entered the workforce. When I opened a business, he came by to support me, and we added each other on WeChat. Later, I saw him posting anti-American, pro-China content, those emotional nationalist-style posts. And I couldn't help but feel the irony. Someone who showed no empathy for historical suffering growing up had now become a passionate patriot. That's why I think a lot of patriotism in China is cheap. It's just posting on social media, patriotism with your fingertips. There's a joke that captures this perfectly. A reporter asks a farmer, "If the country is in danger, would you donate your money?" The farmer says yes. "Would you donate your house?" "Yes." "Would you donate your cow?" "No, that's my only cow." People know exactly what truly belongs to them. In the past, I also believed China would get better. I thought, yes, there are problems, but the leaders are wise and corruption is just a local issue. I think many Chinese people still believe this. But later I started questioning, do those who truly control resources even need to be corrupt? They control the entire economic system. When you can draw blood directly from the main artery, does that even count as corruption? On top of that, nationalism, especially hatred toward the US and Japan, makes independent thinking even harder. When I was younger, I even fantasized about going to Japan to spread viruses. Now I look back, and I can't even believe I once thought that way. That's how powerful propaganda is. Sometimes I ask myself, why did people in Mao's era believe in absurd things like 10,000 kilograms of grain per moo? Why did they treat mangoes like sacred relics? Why did Red Guards turn on their own teachers and families? But when you look at it today, the underlying mechanism is the same. The propaganda machine has never stopped. Why build the Great Firewall? Because it works. Look at today's Weibo or WeChat moments. How many people still dare to speak honestly? A few years ago, I used to repost social issues, forced demolitions, the Wenzhou train crash, and some classmates called me a traitor, saying I only focused on the negative side, telling me, "If you're so capable, why don't you run the country?" Back then, I would get angry. Now, I don't really care anymore. Especially in recent years with the rise of wolf warrior diplomacy. Some people feel China is strong now and want to show off that strength to the world. But I've come to think, it's pointless to try to wake everyone up. You can't wake someone who's pretending to sleep. Some people are pretending. Some profit from nationalism. Others are just swept along by emotions. As for me, I don't speak out as aggressively anymore. Someone like me, a tiny ant, can't compete with organized online propaganda, and it's easy to get labeled a traitor. So why not just let them stay inside their own echo chamber? After all, they say it themselves. As long as we have food to eat, that's enough. Some people simply can't be woken up. So now I only speak on YouTube. It's become the only place where I can still express myself. Of course, I still have to stay cautious, because the reach of surveillance has long extended beyond the firewall. Alright, that's it for today. I don't know how long this channel will last, but as long as I still have a voice, I'll keep speaking. See you in the next video.